Welcome to the Mysteries of the Bible channel. If you like videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, click like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. We have new videos every week. Next, we will explore another one of the many mysteries of the Bible. The sands of ancient Egypt whispered tales of grandeur and power. Pharaohs ruled with an iron fist. Their monumental pyramids stood as testaments to their might. But beneath this veneer of glory, a darker story unfolded. The Hebrews, a people brought to Egypt during a time of famine, now toiled under the yoke of slavery. Their cries for freedom fell on deaf ears. Pharaoh, fearing their growing numbers, issued a chilling decree. All newborn Hebrew boys were to be cast into the Nile, drowned at birth. Fear and despair cast a long shadow over the land. Jochebed, a Hebrew woman of immense faith, gave birth to a son. She saw in him the glimmer of hope. But the shadow of Pharaoh's decree loomed large. She hid her baby for 3 long months, her heart heavy with each passing day. Finally, she could hide him no longer. With a heavy heart, she wove a basket of bulrushes, waterproofing it with bitumen. She placed her precious baby inside.
She sent her daughter Miriam to watch over the basket. She placed her trust in God, praying for a miracle.
The currents carried the basket downstream towards where Pharaoh's daughter bathed. The princess, drawn by the baby's cries, discovered him. She saw beyond his Hebrew features, recognizing his vulnerability.
Miriam, watching from the reeds, seized the opportunity. She suggested her own mother, Jochebed, as a wet nurse.
And so, in a twist of fate, Moses was raised in the very palace that had condemned him to death. His own mother became his caretaker, nurturing him with love and stories of his true heritage. The name she gave him, Moses, meant drawn from the water. It was a constant reminder of his miraculous survival and the uncertain future that lay ahead. Moses grew up within the opulent walls of the Egyptian palace. He was raised as a prince, schooled in all the wisdom and knowledge of the Egyptians. He was surrounded by luxury and privilege, yet he could not escape the truth of his birth. His mother, Jochebed, had instilled in him the knowledge of his Hebrew heritage. He knew he was different. He saw the suffering of his people, the Hebrews, toiling under the oppressive rule of the Egyptians. The stark contrast between his life of comfort and the misery of his kin created a chasm within him. He grappled with his dual identity, a prince of Egypt, yet a son of slaves. He witnessed the brutality inflicted upon the Hebrews, their cries for mercy echoing in his ears. His heart ached for them. He felt a growing sense of responsibility. The plight of his people weighed heavily on his conscience, pulling him towards a destiny he could not yet comprehend. One day, Moses witnessed a horrifying scene. An Egyptian overseer was brutally beating a Hebrew slave. Anger surged within him. He could no longer bear to watch the injustice. In that moment of rage and empathy, he struck down the Egyptian, killing him. This act of defiance was a turning point. It shattered the illusion of his Egyptian identity.
His deed was soon discovered. Word spread like wildfire. No longer could he hide behind the mask of Egyptian royalty. He was a Hebrew, a defender of his people, a fugitive from the law. Fearing for his life, Moses fled Egypt. He left behind the only world he had ever known, venturing into the vast and unforgiving desert. He became a shepherd in Midian, seeking refuge in solitude. Little did he know that his exile was but a prelude to a greater calling, a divine appointment that would change the course of history.
Section 5. The Burning Bush, a Divine Summons. Years passed, and Moses lived a simple life in Midian. He married Zipporah, the daughter of a Midianite priest, and found solace in the rhythms of nomadic life. Yet the plight of his people, the Hebrews groaning under Egyptian oppression, never left his thoughts.
One day, while tending my flock near Mount Horeb, I encountered a sight that defied explanation. A bush engulfed in flames, yet unconsumed by fire.
From the midst of the fire, a voice boomed, calling his name. It was God, revealing himself to Moses. He spoke of the suffering of the Israelites and declared that Moses was chosen to deliver them from bondage. He was to go before Pharaoh, the mighty ruler of Egypt, and demand the release of his people.
Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?
Moses was overwhelmed. He felt inadequate, unprepared for such a monumental task. His initial response was one of resistance, a reflection of his human frailty in the face of the divine. Section 6. A reluctant prophet, doubts and reassurance. Moses, riddled with self-doubt, hesitated to embrace his divine mission. He questioned his abilities, his eloquence, even his very identity.
What if they do not believe me? What if they do not listen?
He felt inadequate, a shepherd facing an empire. But God, in his infinite compassion, understood Moses' fears. He reassured him, promising to be with him every step of the way.
I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain.
To further bolster Moses' confidence, God appointed his brother Aaron as his spokesperson. Aaron, with his eloquence and charisma, would be Moses' voice, conveying God's message to Pharaoh and rallying the Israelites. With this divine reassurance and the support of his brother, Moses finally embraced his destiny. Section 7. Let my people go, the confrontation with Pharaoh. Armed with God's power and Aaron's eloquence, Moses returned to Egypt. He stood before Pharaoh, the very embodiment of earthly might.
Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness.
But Pharaoh, his heart hardened by pride and arrogance, scoffed at their request. He refused to acknowledge their God. He saw the Hebrews as his property, their labor essential to his kingdom.
No, I will not let your people go.
Pharaoh's defiance unleashed a series of plagues upon Egypt. Each plague was a testament to God's power over nature, a demonstration of his wrath against the Egyptians' oppression. The Nile, their lifeblood, turned to blood. Swarms of locusts devoured their crops. Boils covered the land. Darkness descended upon the land, a palpable darkness that terrified the Egyptians. Yet through it all, Pharaoh remained obstinate, his heart unmoved by the suffering of his people. Section 8. The Exodus, a daring escape to freedom. As the 10th and final plague approached, God instructed Moses to prepare for a swift and decisive escape. He commanded every Israelite family to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. This would be a sign for the angel of death, sent to deliver the final plague, to pass over their homes. That fateful night, a hush fell over Egypt. The air crackled with anticipation and dread. At midnight, a wail of anguish swept through the land. The angel of death had struck, taking the lives of the firstborn sons of every Egyptian family, from the Pharaoh's own household to the humblest dwelling. Only the Israelites, protected by the blood of the Lamb, were spared. Devastated and broken, Pharaoh finally relented.
Go, leave my land, all of you. Worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and your herds and be gone.
And so began the Exodus, the miraculous journey of the Israelites from slavery to freedom. Section 9. Crossing the Red Sea, a leap of faith. With Pharaoh's reluctant blessing, the Israelites, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, embarked on a perilous journey across the Sinai desert. They carried with them their meager possessions, their hopes, and their newfound faith. But Pharaoh, his heart again hardened by regret and rage, had a change of heart. He pursued the fleeing Israelites with his chariots and soldiers, determined to recapture his former slaves. As the Israelites reached the shores of the Red Sea, they found themselves trapped between the advancing Egyptian army and the impassable waters. Fear gripped their hearts.
Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the wilderness to die?
But Moses, his faith unshaken, raised his staff and stretched his hand over the sea. And then a miracle unfolded before their very eyes. A powerful east wind split the waters, creating a dry path through the sea. The Israelites marched through the parted waters, their footsteps echoing on the seabed, their eyes fixed on the opposite shore. As the last of the Israelites reached safety, the waters crashed down upon the pursuing Egyptians, drowning Pharaoh's army and ending their pursuit forever. Section 10. The legacy of Moses' hope endures. Moses led his people through the wilderness for 40 years, facing challenges and triumphs. He received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, forming a new covenant with God. Though Moses couldn't enter the Promised Land, his legacy lived on. Revered as the greatest prophet, he defied an empire and shaped a nation. His story inspires hope and resilience, reminding us that deliverance is possible.